are. We're live. Welcome. Good evening. Welcome to Big D After Dark. We're excited to be with you tonight to take your questions and comments live as we break down the latest FC Dallas news and North Texas SC news. The results from a busy weekend and with the busy week ahead with more soccer on the way. So thanks for joining us. Please know you can send in your comments, your questions. We'll pop those up here on the screen. You'll shape the show. We want this to be, an inclusive conversation, an inclusive one. So anyway, hope you all had a good Mother's Day weekend. And here, of course, I'm Nathan Hill. You can follow me at Nathan J. Hill on Twitter. Next to me is our buddy Tommy LaBeouf at Tom_FC Dallas. Also Ishmael Belcora at Belcora Ishma. And Jose Carmona at El Chico Carmona. Yeah.
Hello.
A good weekend. A good weekend for FC Dallas. A 2-0 defeat of the lowly Seattle Sounders. Of course, the Sounders fresh off their historic CCL win. Congratulations to them.
Congratulations to the Sounders.
Yeah. Someday, FC Dallas will do it with an all homegrown lineup, but someday. But in the meanwhile, we good. They gutted that out, and that obviously is why they're kind of lower on the standings because they've been kind of focusing on that competition, rotating guys. So we did not see maybe the best 11 for Seattle that's available, but FC Dallas welcomed the Sounders in nonetheless, and there was experience on the roster, and they played a good game. They had their low block, they had their five in the back. It was hard for Dallas to really break them down for stretches of the game until the dams broke, right? And Jesus Ferreira with another goal, a seventh on the season, and Paul Arriola with one late to kill the match and any chance of Seattle making the way back in it. So a hot and humid one. We're going to talk about. Let's just get some reactions from the match, and those of you guys who went to the game. Can even give us a sense. It looked like the atmosphere was a lot of fun, and they had some kind of drone light show thing afterwards. But Tommy, we'll just start with you. I'll throw up some highlights as well as we talk about the game.
Yeah. So as you said, Seattle had a low block, and it took a while. FC Dallas was very patient, and they control the ball. I think they frustrate teams by having the ball, but it's kind of a repeating theme where we score the goal in the second half or in the second half. But we had our chances, right? It could have been easily 3-2, 3-0 at half. Hedges hit the post. We got a few other chances in the box, but just a lot of good team play. I love this team. I got to say, I don't miss the shots from Urruti from midfield or Acosta from midfield, and I'm sorry. I just saw that too many times. I'm very happy with this coach, with this team, and Arriola was great. I mean, there was so many good players. I just can't. I don't name them all, but there's just a very good performance from FC Dallas.
Ishmael, what are your reactions?
Yeah, I feel like going into this game, this was the expectation, and it's just a breath of fresh air that, in comparison with last season, that the expectations are being met and oftentimes are being they're being passed. I think it was quite funny that it was after Seattle made some subs of like their starting players, including Roldan and Rusnak, where the team was able to break through. I think this might be the best overall game by the midfield where you haven't seen them like overload themselves because it was the chances that Seattle had were never at fault of the midfield. The few chances that they had, the midfield was a rock throughout the game. Specifically, Paxton and Siki, these are both their best games so far for both of them. And also, it's great to see Arriola back on the score sheet, get himself back into the groove of things after the injury and the national team call-up. And overall, it's just a decent performance.
Yeah, Jose.
Yeah, I have to agree that I'm excited at the fact that expectations are being met. I said it. Congratulations to Seattle for winning CCL, but you know, it's MLS, and I'm very happy with the win. You can only defeat the team that's placed before you. So I know some Seattle fans aren't too happy about it, but it's not our fault. You guys did what you had to do to win your big game, and you know basically handed this match on a platter to FC Dallas, and I'm happy to see that the team went out there and did what it was supposed to do against really a lesser team. Most importantly to me, though, was when those substitutions came in the second half from Seattle when they brought in their better players. Uh, the FC Dallas never let those players settle into the game. Really, I think they dominated even more. Really, uh, once substitutions came in, and that's a continued thing that I think we need to appreciate is that the substitutions are having a very real impact in pretty much every match this year, where they come in and the team just elevates its play. And I think we'd like to see him a little earlier, but it's working. Whatever it is that coach is doing is working. So I'm very happy with the result.
One thing I wanted to say, and I did forget to mention, and I had wanted to say, is that two players from last year I think have got a rejuvenation under this coach, and that's Hara. I mean, he's not looking slow on the field. He's not looking extremely fast, but he's looking really good on the field. And the same thing with I can never Facu Quinones. Wait,
Yeah,
no, wait.
Facu. Facu.
Facu is looking good. I mean, I'm not even complaining about him anymore. And and he also looks fit. He looks great, and I give all the credit to Nico on that. I mean, he's made those players better.
Yeah, and by the way, we were just watching the some of the highlights there from the field level, which I think are kind of fun to see. You saw after Jesus scored, he pulled out one of his shin guards, which in the post game mentioned, and I didn't notice it from the feed I was watching, but I think folks who were closer saw that's what he did. And those shin guards are from his dad. His dad has them made and sent stateside, and for him to wear. And they have, I guess like his dad sent him this little talisman with his name on it and stuff. So that's why he pulled it out, because he realized his next goal was tying his dad in total goals. So it's a really cool thing, really cool moment for Dallas to see. For Dallas, see the second generation of guys coming up and doing great things. It's just so I just what I love about this team. Well, actually, before we do, let's go and listen to Nico. I asked Nico after the game. I just said, Seattle kind of pulled out a B team. But this team was hard to break down, and so Nico kind of pushed back against that. He said, and just listen to how he responds, but how the state of the Sounders and what Dallas had to do to win.
I think if you analyze the lineup that they show, a lot of these players that the starter could play as a starter in MLS. Then I think when we talk about B or A team, we have to think first how many games these guys have in MLS, and then do a good research of that, because we're talking about Montero, Bruin, that are really, really good players. Center backs like Nuhu, like Zizoko, like they play last year. And then Rigo for them is a player that is rotating a lot this year and is starting a lot of games. And Medranda is a player that has played a lot of games in the league. Then I think when we do an evaluation, we have to be careful about that, because they were the best prepared to compete today. And even if they bring the other players, we don't know if it was maybe better for us, because maybe they are tired because they play midweek. And then the sum of the energy that all these guys brought are important, for them. And these guys are hungry. Vargas is being also starting in and out the lineup. Atencio played a lot of games last year. Then they're good players, and we don't have to not give credit to our guys. And as I said before, when you play against a back line of 5 and 4 and 1, it's not easy to break down. If you see Liverpool today, that he faced a backline of five, it was really difficult for them. And they have really, really good players, and it's not easy for any team in the world. Then it's not going to be easy for us. And one thing that we sometimes cannot forget is the first thing is you have to be patient. And then if you could see the second half, they were tired. And this is why it was very successful, the first half we did. Because we didn't rush. We were patient. We just moved them and moved them. Them feeling frustrated because they couldn't win the ball. And of course, there is some details in the attacks that we did better in the second half. And this is what we talk in the halftime. But I think overall, the team did a very good job, a very mature performance. That is not easy because this team last year with a younger team and using a lot of academy players beat Austin in a similar circumstances. Then I think it's never easy, these type of games.
Wisdom there from Nico, and I think he makes a good case. Although I say I don't know that Will Bruin is a starter at this point in his career for other teams, but he's definitely has had a success, and there's players there with definitely with experience. So it was an interesting mix, and really I think they loaned up the right back from Tacoma, right, and he played an all right game too. He didn't embarrass himself out there. He was feisty. So certainly Seattle came hoping to get something out of this match. It did make things difficult, but yet I think ultimately the talent won out for Dallas, and that home field quality and atmosphere certainly played a part.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I think his point is well made that Seattle's first team is so good that their second team would be like in that region of like 7 to 10 in the standings if that's who they rolled out because uh, Vargas played in the Champions League final. Madronda played for SKC for years. Tola was a starter. Will Bruin probably could start for Houston right now, anyway, if we're talking about where he could start. Montero used to be a DP and is still very good. Chu is one of those what's it called that new uh, young player program that they're doing with international players. So I mean, it's a good lineup. I just think it's yeah, like of course you say face because you're like, oh yeah, that's definitely their B team. But I also think Nico makes a good point that you play who you face, and I mean it's kind of funny that this is our answer considering how angry Austin fans have been to MLSsoccer.com writers when talking about their opponents for the last couple of weeks. But I mean, I think that statement holds true that they the FC Dallas always tries to just wear down any team that they play, and it seems like this is the consistent tactic for a lot of their games. They did this for Nashville. They did it uh, for Houston. They do this a lot, especially when it comes to teams that come to Dallas trying to just low block it. So I don't know. It probably would be a different scoreline if you had Rui Diaz and Rodero and didn't play homegrown and Sissoko at center back. But I mean, the amount of like pressure that FC Dallas put in that first half would have wear down anyone, honestly.
Yeah.
Okay, and I'm going to disagree with Nico because the team that Seattle rolled out against FC Dallas is sitting 13th in the West. That's indicative of the talent that they put on the field during MLS while they're focusing on CCL, and that's good for them. We saw the lone loss that Dallas suffered was against New England, and New England rolled out their A team even though they had CCL match midweek, which came back to haunt them because they focused on MLS, got knocked out of CCL. Now you see what Seattle had to do. Bravo to Seattle. They focused on the big prize. but they had to roll out the 13th place team in the West. That's you know that's the truth. So I think our coach was just being nice, in all honesty, because the results say that Seattle is where there is because that's the talent that they've been rolling out there. Um, so all I want to say is, like I said, Dallas can only beat the team they roll out, that our opponents roll out, and I do want to say that it was hotter this weekend, and you see where the team. I do like that Nico pointed out that they were trying to wear them down. You know, let's wear them down. In Dallas, and basically it sets sort of like the tempo going forward of what we can expect. We can expect the team to play it, play possession, get those teams moving around in the first half, and then go for the jugular in the second half once the heat and the exhaustion settles in, and that's great. I mean, but that means that the defense has to be rock solid and not allow any goals in the
Yeah,
first half.
I mean the defense that we have. It's not that we have the intimidating defense. It's the offense. It's the holding the ball, keeping the ball safe, being very controlling with the ball is a good defense. But we also have a good defense led by Hedges. But Paxton had a great game, and he's really showing it. We can also say now, I think, if you don't know now, Jesus Ferreira is a bona fide DP. That was the right call they made earlier in the year. What a solid shot by Jesus Ferreira. And it's the second time I recall this year that two guys followed Velasco, leaving someone else open for the goal. It happened the other day when Velasco came and they both guarded the guy, and he passed it to Farfan, who shot it and bounced off, and Zeke got his first goal. This past game, two guys went along with Velasco, dummy through Areola to Jesus for the goal. They followed Velasco. So even though he's not beating people one on one, he's losing the ball. He's got to do much better in that angle. He's still killing people in the midfield with his dribbling and his passing. And I just think, he creates problems for the defense. Again, it's just a great game by FC Dallas.
Yeah, definitely some good stuff. Well, I asked after the game. Paul Areola was the man of the match, so he got to wear the cowboy hat, which was actually too big for his head. It's just kind of funny, but and so I asked him about this team. I just noted that he has, Paul is one of those MLS vets. He's been on some solid teams. He's been in the thick of things. He's had time with Major League Soccer to understand, get a sense of what good teams can do and what they look like. And so I just asked him kind of what the ceiling of this team was, and that's keeping in mind that we still have these performances from guys off the bench who really come in and influence the game, and like Siki, I think there are more storylines yet to kind of come out of this season, and guys to sort of make their case for more minutes with just a great performance. And so I asked kind of that sense of that ceiling. Then we'll talk about it. Kind of what and this may be a week to week question. What is this team's ceiling at this point? So let's listen to Paul.
The sky's the limit for us as long as we stay humble. One game at a time, 1 week at a time, focusing on how we can consistently get better, not getting ahead of ourselves, individually staying motivated and willing to sacrifice, the individual for the team. If we can do that, we're going to be a really, really good team throughout the year. I'm really confident in that. And I'll also say to the culture that we have, it's so important. Like you mentioned, the guys that come off the bench, pretty much every game this year, the subs have made differences. And it's tough to have a full locker room invested the way that this team is invested, again, in the collective and the team performance. And you have guys showing up every single week, playing their best, in whatever role they have.
So a whole team that's invested. All right. So we're kind of in uncharted territory. Last year was such a dismal thing. Like this feels almost like we don't want to jinx it or something at times, but it's so much fun. The crowds are fun. The team is growing. And I think that's my question. It's like, we've seen this team already get on a good roll here. We've seen them get waypoints. We do some of the things that they just struggled last year. But I don't know that we've seen the best yet of this team. I still
I agree.
think, yeah, there's chemistry, there's unlocking particular players, growing in confidence. A guy like Velasco, understanding his role, and guys on the bench who I think, again, as I said earlier, are going to still make an impact here and there. Some who may even try to grab a starter minutes and stuff like that. So it's a good place to be. So what is the ceiling at this point? How are y'all feeling about this team? Jose, why don't we start with you?
Maybe I haven't said it here, but I think that this team's good enough to push for a home playoff match. And let's face it, if you think the team is good enough to host a playoff match, then it's good enough to reach a Western final, because that's what you're playing the home playoff match for. Now, I will add that I'm probably one of the most optimistic people you'll run into. So, so let me just say that that's the ceiling. That's where I think they can hit. But of course, it's early. They have to maintain their good play on the road. They have to make sure that they, avoid any key injuries and stuff like that. And I think they're laying the foundation for that. That's a good start. Honestly, uh, I think you're seeing a team that looks like a solid playoff contender for sure. But let's hope, let's keep the good times rolling, and hopefully, like I said, I think they'll have a shot at that. You know.
All right.
Yeah,
Ishmael,
I mean,
what's your sense?
yeah, I think I would be as optimistic as Jose is if the team had won a road game. And again, they've only lost one, which is in and of itself a great thing. But I think our next four road games are LA, Galaxy, Vancouver, Orlando, and Austin. If we don't get a victory out of at least one of those four games, I think there is some cause for concern about how this team does on the road, about how tactically Nico seems to drop from like the mid block that they play defensively to a low block when they go on the road. And I mean, they've grinded out three draws against some good teams that maybe SKC is not a great team, but some good defensive teams. Uh, but I mean, the way that we see them play at home, if that can be reciprocated on the road, I think they could definitely make it to a home field game in the playoffs. And I mean, when you look at the teams around them in the standings, I mean, LAFC looks solid, if not a bit shaky in defense sometimes. You know how we feel about Austin's easy schedule. LA Galaxy did not look very good against Austin. I mean, and Diego Costa, Kevin Cabral, um, Alvarez, they're homegrown. They're all playing pretty disappointing this season. Uh, RSL, Nashville, and Minnesota, the rest of those that are in the playoffs right now, they're not like peaking at a very good level. Everyone's having to go through some level of difficulty. They're having one issue or another. Um, so I don't think it's crazy to think that we could get a home playoff game. But I mean, we need to start improving on the road. And I mean, I don't think that there's a doubt that we're going to get some victories on the road. Is just I think to 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 build up confidence and change the way that we're playing these teams on the road and become what we are thinking as a home playoff team, a home seed playoff team. Those results need to start happening on the road.
Mm.
Yeah, well, I would say that we're very excited about the start, and but there's been some things that can definitely be improved. I mean, I'll just spit out some things that I've been seeing on the field that can be better. You know, we had that goal against Houston, mental lapse on defense. Velasco has to beat better players on one. He's got to do a better job of that. I mean, everything else has been great. What else I was thinking to myself? We got to score goals. We got to not hit the post. I mean, had just hit the post, that was fine and dandy. But Just and then just the final third and the beginning of the game has got to be better. Every game that we played so far, I don't remember us ever getting a goal first half. It's all even this past game, the one before that, it's always the second half, which is fine. But what if we went ahead? I want to see this team get ahead early in the game and see how they reacted, and can they shut it out? Can they finish a game when they score early? It's different when it's 0-0 when you're up and you have to play defense and the other team's coming at you. They haven't had that yet, I don't think. Um, but the bright side is look, I mean, O'Brien came in off the bench and was a big spark in the game, and he's turned out to be something special. He's not a superstar yet, but he's definitely a piece of the puzzle. Other players that have been coming in, Ahara has been looking good. Um, uh, so I mean, and we have yet to see Sean play an MLS match. He's going to play in the Open Cup for sure. And we got Thomas Roberts coming in. I still think Nanu is still trying to gel with the team. He's playing limited minutes right now. I think the team has got a way to go to become a gelling team. When they scoring goals in the first half and being a little bit more dangerous. But they're very good right now. It's just that they got a lot of room for improvement.
And I just wanted to add on what Ishmael said was basically, I think the reason FC Dallas may have a chance at a home playoff spot isn't because they're one of the best teams in the West. It's because all the best teams in the West have flaws. They're all flawed. Even Seattle, you could say, oh, hey, Seattle, once they get, settled down, blah, blah, they'll make the run as expected. But let's not forget that most teams that participate in CCL have, that CCL hangover, and they tend to underperform. Now, maybe Seattle will be the first team. Yeah, maybe every team has gone through it, and there's nothing to say that Seattle will be the first one to not suffer it. But they got to dig themselves out of a hole first, and teams aren't going to exactly cooperate with them.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just saying I think every team in the West is flawed, and really I don't think we know for sure. We suspect who the top teams are, but even they are beatable. So I'm looking forward to the season and getting excited about seeing what the team can do on the road going forward.
Yeah, and I think when we're looking at the current roster build for FC Dallas, I think they've done a very good job at what we were thinking was like a black hole of their salary cap, and how a lot of the players from last season underperformed so much that so many salaries looked like they were going to weigh the team down. And now we're looking at this season, and it's that the depth and the starting 11 is promising. I mean, when Cervania gets back to the starting 11, you have Siki, Roberts, and I'd argue now Cirio is the sub, are all very talented players. And then Nkosi, Nanur, Ima, whoever it is, those are talented players. Jimmy is probably one of the best bench goalkeepers in the league. There's a lot where I think the team can improve, especially looking into the offseason. Like when we're talking about Velasco, I think the time will give him time will lead to him playing better and being able to take players better one on one. But just having either having Sean play, or like getting, if Sean does leave, which I suspect he will, getting some competition for him to like push that spot. Because I think one of the great things that the team has done this year that I think has elevated performances is cause those positional battles, because both Ima and Nanu are like on a tightrope at this point. And if one does a single stupid mistake, there's someone right there lined up right behind him. As soon as Facu starts to mess up, as he did last year, which I hope he doesn't, Cerrio's right there in the back burner. So as the team develops, as the team starts to grow into what they are, as long as they stay consistent and as long as the road performances begin to improve, I don't think it's crazy to think that this team goes into the playoffs with with a home field advantage. I think it is quite possible.
Yeah, I mean,
I
you
wanna.
mentioned. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just gonna pile on the whole Faku thing. I mean, we've always said that some players need time. They need a whole season to adjust, and Faku has proven that to be the truth at the moment. I mean, you look at the player we're seeing today compared to last year, and it's a completely different player out there. I mean, last year he looked slow, lethargic. He lunged on a lot of his tackles. He barely ever got forward. I mean, that's not the player we're seeing right now. We're seeing a player that's
Good
as
ball skills.
advertised,
Yeah.
and that's the whole, hey, give him a year, and here we are a year later, and I have no problem with him starting ahead of Serial because I was starting to get worried that Serial was going to be our starter going forward, and would be sold. I mean, he's the youngest midfielder out there, and to be a starting for a, a team that's in the top five in the Western Conference and all year, I'm sorry, someone was going to come and take him from us, and so I'm kind of happy that that's maybe not going to happen. I would rather him rotate with Facundo, and I have no problem with Facundo basically taking over because, like I said, Cirio's still a kid. He's still growing up. He's the youngest player out there. I just want to add one last thing. This game was the perfect example. I understand Seattle wasn't 100%, well below 100%, but this was the example of how not to play FC Dallas because you have to press the midfield. If you let them hold possession, they will just slice you and dice you. I mean, I was looking at the passing stats for all three midfielders, and I think Faku was the bottom guy at a little over 89%. Paxton was at 91%, and Siki was at 93%. And did
Incredible
they
game
look
by
good?
Stevie.
Exactly. And just saying, you can't let the FC Dallas midfield hold possession because they will simply just wear you out. And that's the difference was this match from previous matches is that press wasn't there and they were given space to operate. And if you do that, you're gonna lose. And they continued to do that once they brought some of their starters in. There was no change because they didn't change their style of play. So just the thing to look at going forward is I expect teams to basically do more pressing on the team as the season progresses, as they see what has worked and what
Yeah.
hasn't worked.
Yeah, the thing about the home field, though, I mean, players have been slipping every game at home, and Tomasi slipped. And I think if their starters are playing, that's a goal, and Seattle's up 1-0.
Yeah, there's
He clearly
nothing we
slipped,
can really
and
do about it though. It's
well,
it's
yeah,
basically it's basically the result, and I mean, the way it's been explained is we had that unusual winter, and that has affected the way the grass grows because there's two types of grasses that grow. One is basically helps it keep its structure, and that's the one that has basically been affected by the winter. And there's nothing you can do about that. It is what it is until they bring out the new grass, which will
well,
happen. And yes, I mean Dallas is playing
make
in it.
sure
Their
you're, make
opponents are
sure you're
playing in
wearing
it.
the right shoes. Make sure you're wearing the right shoes, right?
And
If you're
honestly,
a
that's
home
the only
team.
frustration. But that doesn't. I don't think it's going to make a difference much because the way it's explained to me is that the grass that's there is basically coming right out. So that's why you're basically slipping and sliding because the ground itself under you, the grass is not being held in place, and it doesn't matter what kind of cleats you've got, you're going to slip and slide no matter what. And that's where the complaint comes from. But there's nothing the team can do, and so it is what it is until they switch grass, and it's going to be a long while. But
Well, the other
uh,
thing, Nathan, I wanted to say is that we also don't know what's going to happen in the summer break. What's going to happen with players going in and out, and now you caught my attention when you mentioned Sean and the interest in the fact that he hasn't played. Because in the past, when players don't play, there usually something's going on with them behind the scenes, right? When Diaz stopped playing, all of a sudden he was gone. Reggie Cannon stopped playing, he was gone. There's nameless players that this has happened to. Now I'm wondering, and I have no evidence whatsoever other than that Sean has been just out with Hungary and he's just behind, and that's the reason why he hasn't played. But with all the wingers that we have on the team, they're really, you don't want to be sitting Velasco for Sean. So in my mind, I'm wondering if they have plans for Sean in the summer break to get someone else in another position. Maybe,
Could
maybe
be.
not. I don't have any. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and I think Sean's problem is that he showed his flashes of stuff last year, but then had his his moments too where it just didn't quite click. But you bring in a guy like Paul Areola, who's talented and a great leader, great presence, a professional, and so Shun is going to get knocked down that depth chart. He's going to have to work extra hard to get minutes, and I think
you got O'Brien, you got
and he had
Sean,
a good showing in the
Velasco.
Open Cup last time. Maybe he'll get some more minutes there, and to take advantage of that. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see. I mean, I would love to see Dallas go out and get another presence. I mean, I would love another attacker just to provide some depth up front. But I don't know how much maneuvering room they have right now with the roster. So.
And our keeper, I'd like to see them lock him down.
Absolutely. I just want to say I'm not concerned about Shun at all. I mean, best case scenario for him is he fights his way up to the fourth winger behind O'Brien. And even then, he's still not going to get on the game much because it's going to be Velasco and Areola. And they want Areola to be a 90-minute player. So whoever comes in for Velasco is probably O'Brien. That's it. I mean, sure, I understand that Elmet Kahar and some of these other guys got minutes. I'm just saying that there's not a lot of minutes to go around really at that position. There's three guys that are going to get the bulk of the minutes. So I don't really have a problem with Shun not getting a lot of minutes as long as he gets minutes in the U.S. Open Cup. Now, if he stops getting minutes in the U.S. Open Cup, then I'll begin to worry. I mean, he's still a kid too.
It's not like a worry. I mean, this is sometimes what happens with players that they're just not able to get minutes. It's not like I'm worried. It's that I genuinely expect him to go out on loan this offseason.
I do agree with that.
It's not just because of like lack of minutes. I think that his role in the team has been reduced, and no matter what happens to him, Oberon seems, for better or worse, to be the bench player as a winger. So, since you're stuck with you're not stuck, since you have Khalil Ahmed-Carr for a decent amount of time, and that they're still committed to using him as like a Swiss Army knife role for the attack. Sean just makes more sense to send out on loan and let him develop. Maybe he takes a Roberts path where he develops at some point and becomes like a better player for FC Dallas in the future, or maybe he turns into a Dante Sealy and he will definitely not come back. So, I mean, this is how sometimes roster building happens. I mean, players that have the capability of starting just are not going to be able to start, and it's disappointing because I think Sean is definitely better than Oberlin. And I don't know if I'm few in that opinion, but I genuinely
they're different
think
players.
Here,
They're different players. You use them in different ways.
Yeah, different, and I still think better. But if he cannot make it in the roster, just send him out on loan, see how he does, and send him back to his native Hungary and to let him play very well for one of those teams and see what you can do then.
And while we're at it, he's not the only guy that needs to go out on loan. I think Munjoma is another player that we've barely got a peek off. You know, here's a guy who was competing for starting minutes last season, and now, maybe we see him on the bench from time to time. He's got maybe like a couple of minutes of mop-up duty, I think, that he's seen. So I think the summer, I'm with Ishmael that I expect one or two players to go on loan, with Shun and Munjoma probably being the other. But here's the thing is, what do they bring in? I mean, are there going to be any summer additions coming in? Because honestly, I don't see any immediate need. I mean, the only thing I can think of is that third striker. If Ferreira goes off, for the USMT, maybe gets dinged up or something and has to sit for several games, you got Hara as your only guy, and we all have seen that he's not a 90-minute player. So who's your third guy?
Hmm.
And that's my only thing I'd like to see in the summer is basically, hey, bring in you know a young U22 player at that position. Someone raw, but someone that can at least, we've seen Quinones coming off the bench and giving you solid minutes. When you're trying to lock down the game. A player that can do that, a player can come in and give you minutes.
I don't
I
see
think that's
Jesus
really
going anywhere.
no, no. But I'm talking about he's playing every match. Every match he's going to need to rest. So when he rests, when
Right.
he finally sits, you've got Hara and then
Right.
Elnad uh, Redzik. I mean,
Catching.
who's your?
Yes,
I
Messi.
mean, those are your other options at striker. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
Yeah.
we need a third striker.
Hmm.
And
Well, we
and
don't. We
hopefully
don't
it's
want
got to be a young guy.
to. Yeah, we don't. We don't want to broadcast on this podcast to Dan Hunt that we don't need other players coming in. We always like new players
I
coming in.
I'm just saying I'm looking at what they could add, and that's really I'm thinking, hey, that's the only thing I can think of they could add. I mean, how about you know getting one
Maybe.
of those
Yeah.
homegrown strikers? I don't care. Get a third body in there, my man.
Maybe another center back at worst case.
No, we've got too many center backs. I mean, you got basically Tafari and Quinones, and then you still got Bartlett over and playing for North
I'm
Texas.
not a. I don't
So
think
so we have.
Bartlett's good.
But my point is, he's the fifth option right now, so you don't really need another center back at all. You either need either another midfielder or another striker.
I think a striker would be the first choice.
That's what I was getting at.
Well, good stuff to think about. Well, this week is a busy one for FC Dallas. Let's just shift our attention that way, and then we'll talk about North Texas before we close out the show. Yeah, so Open Cup action again this week, Wednesday night at Sporting Kansas City. I think that draw again. As we know, Dallas plays well up there in Kansas City. They can grind out some results, but this is definitely a match that you want to win, and you don't want to necessarily push it into extra time and get everybody exhausted and everything. But yeah, definitely an option. There's depending, and I saw that Sporting Kansas City loaned up a player from SKC2, so they may rotate some as well. It's going to be an interesting match to see how Nico handles this, and if at what they invest in this match. Then this weekend, going out to Los Angeles to play the Galaxy, which will be another interesting match. Ishmael, how do you think Nico's going to handle this week?
Well, I think when you look at this week, you have to also look at next week. So we play Kansas City tomorrow, which is a Tuesday. We go to LA. We go to LA and play LA on Saturday. Then we go to another country and go to Vancouver on Wednesday. And then we come back and then play Minnesota on Sunday. Now, that's going to be a difficult 2 weeks with 4 games and a lot of cross country travel. But I think the most important way to look at it is you can't do full rotations because if you fully rotate against Kansas City, then you have to play your starting 11 against LA. And if you play your starting 11 against LA, you have to rotate completely for Vancouver. And you don't really want to do that because Vancouver on the road is a very winnable game. And when we're talking about, again, road games and getting points on the road, that's an example of where I think it's almost, from where we are at the table right now, it's almost a requirement. So when we're going into Kansas City, I don't really expect a full rotation. Players like Farfan, Paxton, Jesus, uh, those kinds of players that are starting game in and game out, they will definitely be benched because like you don't want to overtire them. Um, I also expect Jimmy to start because he seems to be he is the backup and he is very good at that role. He's again like I said, probably one of the better backups in the league. Besides that, I honestly think it's a free for all. I think you rotate Tafari, but you play Hedges because Hedges didn't play last week, so he's still kind of fresh. And I also think for this game, you probably don't play Ema because he's currently a starter, and I don't think he had a bad game on Saturday, especially considering that mistake was a slip and it's that field. So when you're looking at it, I honestly expect Munjoma to play on the left because Farfan needs a break. You play Tafari, you play Hedges, and you probably play Nanu, but I would love for Quinones to play to get a starting game. But you might not want to do it in an open cup game. I don't know. You also play Surreal and Cervania, and you might play Siki, but he has played a lot, so you might play a med card. And you also probably play that rotated front line of Hara, Shone, and Obrion. I can actually be talked into playing Areola and then benching him for LA, but after this weekend's performance, you might want him against that difficult side. But you can't. My main point is besides players like Farfan, Jesus, Paxton that really need a break, you can't rotate completely. You really can't, or else you end up exposing a game like Vancouver where you honestly should expect 3 points.
Yeah.
Well, in the past, when we had U.S. Open Cup, we had 3 subs, so you couldn't put a starter in, or because got hurt or whatever. You only had 3 subs, but it's different now. And Nico already gave us an insight to that. He's like, you don't have to rest the players the whole game because of an Open Cup. There's other ways to get around it. I think that we will see Velasco and Jesus later in the game, maybe get 20 minutes. It's nothing different than a practice during the week. Still play on Saturday against the Galaxy. So I expect to see some of the starters come in at some point, just like last time.
Yeah, and I think when you're looking at subbing patterns, things could change. If you go a 60-30 shift, it's very manageable. But then again, when we're talking about subbing, Nico has shown that he really likes to sub late, except when he has a plan. So if he has plans and he's going to do a 60-30 shift for some players, then that's fine. But like me personally, you want to play Jesus against Vancouver because that's a game where those center backs are very beatable by a player like Jesus. So you also don't want to play Jesus 90 against LA because they're going from LA to Dallas and then to Vancouver. That's a lot of traveling. So yeah, like again, a lot of it's malleable, but there does need to be some resting from a lot of these players.
And also Go ahead.
I mostly agree with what Ishmael says. I actually do expect them to start Quinones at right back simply because they've been building up to it. You see his minutes have gradually been going up, and I think this is the perfect time to give him a start. And he doesn't have to play the whole match. I mean, you give him a start and then see how long he lasts. But I think that's someone they've been slowly working into the rotation, and I wouldn't be shocked if he gets a start at right back and Munjoma gets to start over at left back. Yeah, I'm curious to see. I do expect. I think I can't disagree with Tommy in that Velasco and Ferrero will probably be on the bench, but I think the idea is to have them on the bench and only play them if you have to play them, if you're chasing that win. But ideally, you don't want that. Ideally, you'd prefer that they don't play at all. In all honesty.
And Savania, right, who got red carded in the last game. I think he will want to come back and have a reason to play. I think.
I'm just curious to see Thomas Roberts. Is he going to play? I mean, is he going to be on the bench? I'm curious to see. I've heard he's gotten taller, believe it or not. They say he still looks like a kid.
I heard some talk. I heard some chat on him, and I think it's going to be a little bit longer before we see him.
But, I mean, the U.S. Open Cup, I'm not saying start. I'm saying I like to see him on the bench, get a couple of minutes, and at least roll him out there and see what he can do.
Yeah, it'd be exciting.
I was listening to some podcast, and they said that because Nico, his practices are high speed compared to where Thomas Roberts used to be, he's not caught up to this just the speed tempo of practice,
and
even though
that's
they're
and
not
that's what's
long.
and that's what
Yeah,
Shun is holding Shun back too. So
yeah. So we'll see.
Yeah, Javier says, tough game in KC. Sporting is 8-0 at home since 2015 and the U.S. Open Cup. So,
Yeah, but they
This is
haven't
a
played
different,
Nico.
yeah, and this is a different Sporting Kansas City team than
Yeah,
previous years.
it
This
it
is
really
a
will come
very
down to
different team.
what team they roll out, honestly, because Sporting lacks playmakers. They, they're a team that I mean they're solid. Don't get me wrong, and they play a solid style, but they're not going to break you down. They don't have that kind of team. They don't have a Velasco. They don't have a 10. I mean, maybe their starting team does, but are they going to play their starters or are they going to rotate? So it really depends what kind of team they roll out there. I'm just saying, don't forget they've had what two DP injuries, I believe. So they're very thin on playmakers, and so this is a winnable game in the fact that it doesn't have to. I'm not saying Dallas going to roll in or win 1-0 or 2-0. I'm saying this is a game that could go to PKs. I think it's that kind of game, and that's how Dallas should play it. I think I don't. I'm not impressed with Sporting Kansas City's playmakers, in all honesty, and injuries have a lot to do with that. If they don't roll out a first their starting 11 or at least their playmakers, it's going to be a game where we're basically be frustrated and no team's going to be scoring. It's if there's going to be scoring, it's going to be off of a really bad turnover or a set piece, really, and that's I expect an ugly game, and I expect to go to PKs.
all right. You heard it here, folks. Yeah, it was just I like the sense. It's going to be a brutal next couple of weeks for this team. They're going to have to rely on that bench and that depth. So it's been good to see those flashes of guys showing that they're hungry. To have a guy like Siki emerge. So yeah, it gives them some options. It'll be really interesting to see how they handle the striker position. But I think Jesus, and especially the game Saturday night, was so hot and humid. Those guys were just uh, they drank a lot of water. They hopefully have recovered quickly after that. But it's going to be an interesting one to see how the team handles it. Of course, FC Dallas would love to have another Open Cup championship. It's important to the Hunt family. Well, home field advantage does give you an edge, especially in the Open Cup. So we'll see. We'll see what's going to happen and how this team faces the week. Let's shift over to just a North Texas chat before we sign off for the evening. Disappointing draw at home. I gave up the extra point with the PKs. I always forget about those things. So North Texas wasn't able to hold on to the lead. I think North Texas scored first, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm not disappointed with the draw simply because of how early that red card came out,
not a red
and
card.
yeah, it was a double yellow, right? It
Yeah,
was
but I don't know, kind of soft, but whatever.
well, yes, I'm not disagreeing with that, but my point is they were shorthanded. They were down to 10 people for a really long time against a team that's really the highest scoring team in the Western Conference. So for them to just allow one goal and come out of there, I mean, I didn't stick around for the PKs. In all honesty, I never do. It's like I can tolerate the bad camera action, but not during PKs. I just turn it off and check to see who won later. In all honesty, uh, but honestly, I think a draw is once send off occurred, it's a good result. It's a good result.
Yeah,
It's not what you wanted
and
to
I,
see, but it was revenge for Defiance because they played before and they played 1-1 draw. So it's a very fair result against a team that just beat the crap out of St. Louis City, which is hard to do.
yeah, and I also think when you're looking at the schedule for North Texas SC so far, they've played a lot of like the most difficult teams. And as you're going into the next couple of weeks, you're gonna start to see a load off a little bit. I mean, you're gonna get into a stretch in July when you play uh, Houston Dynamo Dos and St. Louis SC, like in back-to-back games, and the Quakes beforehand. But uh, they've gone through a difficult stretch, mostly unscathed. They've played at the level or close to it to most of these teams, and now the expectation is that they just need to pummel these bad two teams, just pummel
Okay.
them.
I just want to add that that stretch isn't over because the team they're playing this week is actually leading their division, and that's Vancouver, the Whitecaps. They lost their first game of the year, 0-1 at the Dynamo. They have not lost a game since. They're on a tear. They're basically very similar to the Dynamo, in fact, and they're a team that is basically it's all Canadian team, by the way, and it's all Canadian kids, and there's not a single, they're mostly college and academy kids, but they're well coached. They had a U23 team last year, very similar to Houston Dynamo in that respect, in that they basically had a pre-existing team playing at a lower level, brought them up, reinforced it, and they're a really solid team. They're very similar to Houston Dynamo too, and a team that another tough opponent that North Texas could lose to, could drop points against. I can't tell you too much about them. I haven't really seen them play, but I can tell you their results. I think it's four game winning streak. I think so, something like that. They're like four wins, two draws, and one loss, and the one loss was the very first match of the year on the road. So yeah, this is the last really tough opponent they'll face in a while. I also want to add one last thing on North Texas. Very interesting about their schedule in that they don't have any stretches where they play at home for a long time or on the road for a long time. Really, they have a balanced schedule. They play on the road, play at home, play on the road, play at home, and it's like that for the entirety of the schedule. So it's very interesting to see how the season will pan out for this team, as they don't really have any good or bad stretches as far as traveling or staying at home.
Well, that's good stuff. Again, going to be a great week of soccer starting tomorrow night with Open Cup match streamed on ESPN Plus. So Jose predicted we go to PKs and Dallas advances. Is that what you're predicting?
That's my prediction.
No, we're gonna
PKs.
win.
Honestly, if Dallas can get a goal early, they can win outright. But like I said, I think if I've heard correctly somewhere that like 3 of the last 4 red cards that Dallas have received have come against Sporting Kansas City. So I'm not expecting the friendly ref situation or a friendly road situation. And like I said, I'm not impressed with Sporting Kansas City's playmakers. I think it's going to be an ugly, chippy game, and I really, like I said, I hope the team wins outright, but I'm expecting it to go to PK simply.
Remember, new season, new coach, new era. 3-0, FC Dallas.
All right. We'll take it. Yeah, we'll love for a game where Shun goes off and just does some wonderful things.
I'll tell you why it won't be 3-0 is because Coach Ka, he basically, if North Texas takes a 1-0 lead, he will basically just shut it down. He'll be like, okay, we're up, and we're just gonna stay up, and the team will literally just sit back, play defense, and dare you to beat it, and they're really good at it. And
well, I thought we were talking about the Open Cup game.
Oh,
Me
sorry,
too.
Yeah,
I went from Open Cup to North Texas. My apology.
Yeah,
My
no,
apologies.
so I think this Open Cup. That's the
I think
one.
I'm tired. I think it's time to go to bed.
Yeah.
I went from
Good. Ishmael, you think Dallas can get the result tomorrow?
Yeah, I think we'll lose. We'll see what happens, but I'm gonna go with the loss.
that's
Cover all my
I'm
bases.
excited to watch
It's-
Sean play. You know, I'm a big Sean fan as well. He was great last year as a young kid, and even though he's behind Velasco, I mean, like they paid so much money for Velasco, he's just behind Velasco. It is what it is, you know. But Sean's a good player, and he had a good game the other day against Sporting Kansas City. I think he had an assist, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, good. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. A fun week of soccer ahead. A lot to look forward to. A lot to celebrate with this team. But yeah, let's hope this is a strong showing in the Open Cup. We keep things going. I just love beating Coach Vermes. I mean, it's just extra deliciousness, And anything's possible. We'll see. It's going to be a tough one. And then of course this weekend against LA Galaxy, which will be a really interesting match. Just continue to see how FC Dallas is going to figure out things on the road and go up against some of these teams with some talent and deal with them. So let's hope they keep building. All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. Javier, thanks for your comments. Remember, you can subscribe to the podcast wherever you find podcasts in case you missed the show live. And we'll be back next week. All right. Go FC Dallas. Good night.
Go to Dallas.
See you guys.
See you guys.